to this show we call The Sweat, a program we bring you every Saturday and Sunday morning live from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock Eastern Time here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. I am your host, Emerson Latzia, sitting alongside one of my faves, Steve Buchanan. Good morning. How are you?
Doing fantastic.
You look great. Your energy is infectious this morning. And speaking of energy, Jules, nice haircut. Julian Edlow, everybody. Good to have you here. I wish you were in studio. We really missed your presence.
Yeah, I have something else infectious, so I'm not there.
That is very true. We also do appreciate that. Okay, coming up on the show, I'm going to appreciate the analysis both of you are bringing to the table. Jules Championship weekend. We're dancing along, the biggest winners and losers, one day out from Selection Sunday here. Opening day, Steve Buchanan, in Major League Baseball is just 5 days away as the Dodgers and Padres head to Korea, South Korea, and one dude is bringing his mattress with him halfway across the world, plus free agent frenzy with many high-profile faces in new places around the NFL. Some really good stuff to get to over the next 2 hours. We'll start with working up a sweat. Let's do it, dudes. A little warm-up bet, storyline, whatever it is you feel like tackling and bringing to the attention of the people watching at home. Now is your time to do it. Bukes, you're up first because you showed up to work today.
Thank you. I got two things I'm gonna hit on here.
Okay, good.
And one of them is not a bet, and one of them is just a straight opinion.
Good.
The other one is a bet. Okay. What benefit does this trip to South Korea do for anybody?
Wow. I don't know. Can you tell me?
It's a little concerning because I was like, I didn't really look at the times for these games because I just, I'm just excited for baseball. And then I was like, what times do these games start, by the way? 6 a.m. Eastern. For both games.
Yeah.
And then, so that means for the West Coast, which is where, both of these teams reside, it's 3 a.m. It's 3 a.m. for both of these games. That is the two games that are starting this season in South Korea.
So do you wake up early or do you stay up late?
You probably stay up late, I would think, because waking up early is the worst.
It's the worst. It's terrible.
Worst.
I love doing it on Saturdays and Sundays for the sweat, but it's terrible.
Oh yeah, when it's time for the sweat and I wait and the alarm goes off, I do like a kip up out of bed.
Me too,
it's easy.
Dude.
But
or you could just sleep through both games because there's going to be 160 more for both teams.
Bingo!
I mean, he's not wrong. Jules. He's not wrong. But I'm more fighting this fight for the West Coast people.
Yeah.
For them to
That's really nice of you.
Thank you. For them to have to be awake at 3 a.m. to watch your team who's probably going to lose anyways. Talking about Padres fans because you're going up against Glasnow, then you're going against Yamamoto on game 2. But I don't know. I understand we're trying to get baseball in different markets. We're trying to, bring the brand out and go across the world here. But my God, is 2 games in South Korea going to sway it for those fans to be invested in the season?
No way, man.
You should be invested in the West Coast people. Okay, so there's just my little rant on that.
I totally agree with everything you said. Well done.
I don't like it at all. The win total for the New York Yankees has finally come back onto DraftKings Sportsbook. We'll talk about this later, all the injuries, all the news that has come from this team over the past week or so. But this win total now sits at 91.5. It's at even money to go over. Its under is at -120. I'm still looking at the under here for this Yankees team. I am still not a believer of this team, despite going out there and getting Juan Soto. That type of move is a massive move for any team. It doesn't matter which team he would end up going to, but there is so much to not like about this Yankees lineup specifically. Remember, this is a team that had a batting average only higher than the Oakland Athletics last year. They only hit better than the Oakland Athletics in batting average. They only scored more runs than 5 other teams in Major League Baseball last year, and that lineup, with the addition of Soto, basically remains untouched. So I am not a believer of this team. I really think we're going to see, we're not going to see Garrett Cole much at all. Again, we'll talk about that later in the show. Under 91.5, I think that's the play here, -120. Give me that for the Yankees win total this upcoming season.
Yeah, and Boone told reporters on Wednesday, too, hey, I penciled him in to start in center field on Saturday. However, yesterday, Boone said probably not when asked by reporters if he would play today. We're talking Aaron Judge.
Yep.
All right, Jules. Warm-up bet, storyline, time to rant about waking up early and watching baseball in South Korea. It's up to you.
Well, waking up at 3 a.m. to watch baseball in South Korea sounds like one of the worst possible things that I ever do in my life. So I'm going to move on to something else, maybe something more fun, more positive, like March Madness.
Yeah.
It's an awesome conference tournament week. If you've been following along, like all day, cover to cover, all these days. Last night, it's been 2 nights in a row that Virginia has had a buzzer beater in regulation go against them to go to overtime. They were able to get by against BC, not the case against NC State. NC State and North Carolina is the ACC final now. Everybody looking at the splits on DK Sportsbook, the public is loving NC State here. DJ Burns, the big guy, they've been a really good story. They're a 10 seed in the ACC. I think that Carolina, this is going to be, we saw Providence. Providence was one of my favorite plays yesterday against Marquette. We saw Providence run out of gas, having to play so hard in the Big East tournament, playing their 3rd game in 3 days. This is going to be NC State's 5th game in 5 days. They've played every day of this tournament as a double-digit seed, and they're going to get a Carolina, and they played past midnight in overtime. So they're going to get a Carolina team here that's only played a couple of games. Spread's 8.5. I think that Carolina, unfortunately, everybody loves that Cinderella story in March, and will probably be rooting for NC State here. But unfortunately, I think that UNC is going to throttle them in this game, the nightcap, the 8:30 Eastern ACC title game. Really good spot for the Tar Heels. One thing that we've seen, so there's a bet, but one way to apply it in general over conference tournament week, just remember how much these teams are playing. It's easy to get excited about these teams that make a run and are winning games, but you have to remember it's that team's 3rd, 4th, 5th game in as many days, and they're now playing against the better teams that are more well-rested because of their buys. So this is generally when these Cinderella runs come to an end. So keep that in mind when you're betting some of these games. On the other hand, we do get some of these with equal rest where the heavyweights get there. We have Houston and Iowa State in the Big 12, equal rest, top 2 seeds. We have UConn and Marquette in the Big East. So there are some good ones, but when these Cinderella runs happen, you got to start to factor rest in when you're going up against a really good team with a big rest advantage.
Yeah, stay up late Tuesday night, bring it into Wednesday morning. Watch that baseball in South Korea.
Right, you're already up. Like, just stay up a couple more hours.
Imagine the feeling, the amazing feeling of your team being 1-0 with only 162 more to go, and you just stayed up for 37 hours so that you could watch the game in South Korea.
This guy is so cynical. If this was basketball, it'd be a whole different story.
I know, Jules. You really got to get it together.
Basketball wouldn't play a game at 3 a.m. in South Korea.
Oh, you just wait. You wait. It's coming. Don't worry.
It is coming.
We'll see how Dennis Rodman's relations go. I know he's very close with.
That's North Korea.
Same thing.
You get no comment. I do have a comment, though, on what's cooking at TPC Sawgrass right now, gentlemen.
Okay.
All right?
Go again.
Yeah. And you know what? I've had some good warm-up bets on this program. I've had some bad warm-up bets. This one I'm feeling extremely confident about. Sahith Theegala. Okay, he's one of the worst players off the tee on the PGA Tour right now. He's improved dramatically over the last year, including his first career win. Yesterday in the 2nd round of the Players, he called this round his worst round of his career. Hit just 7 of 14 fairways. Again, he's 129th in tour driving accuracy. That's a recipe for disaster typically in a Pete Dye designed course like the Stadium course at TPC Sawgrass. This guy was living in and out of the woods all day. He's sitting top 10 right now. He does have in his hand one of the best putters on the PGA Tour. Literally, he is excellent, near perfect on the greens. Yesterday, Christopher Powers of Golf Digest, who will join us live from the Players on this show tomorrow morning, followed him for most of the round, absolutely nailed it when he called Theegala the new Jordan Spieth. So you never really know what is going to happen next with this guy. But a 5 under 67 with just 1 bogey, and I'm not kidding you. You could search it on Twitter. In the woods, behind trees, left and right. The guy was able to get out of trouble consistently. So if he can just be okay off the tee, this guy should easily maintain his top 10 position. And right now, plus 180 to finish top 10 at the Players. After having a bad history here in this course, he finally is starting to put it together at TPC Sawgrass. Yeah, go ahead. Scoop up those plus 180 odds now, because if he has another red hot up and down around Saturday, those odds will dry up. Speaking of drying up, the 1,000th ball in the water on the Island Green, gentlemen, yesterday. Bo Hostler, congratulations, since they started keeping track of that stat in 2003.
What's the stat?
The 1,000th water ball in that watery grave. You know the Island Green there at TPC Sawgrass?
Yes, sir.
I've tweeted out pictures of my wife and I standing on it
I
after our
don't
wedding,
usually look.
in our wedding reception. You didn't see that?
I wasn't there.
Oh, that's right. You weren't there. You weren't invited for a reason. Anywho, keep an eye on that. Keep an eye, and you also have a 4-stroke lead, Wyndham Clark, so that's going to be tough to overcome. Big golf guy. Jules, I want you to stick around because after the break, dude, we're going to break down a lot more. March Madness. You got something to say?
I'm looking forward to breaking down March Madness.
Yeah, I know you are, big man. Well, everyone hang out because it is time for our first break in this 2-hour program. St. Mary's, one of 14 automatic bids, already punched the big dance. Which teams will join them? Later today, an award-winning question Julian will do his best to answer next. Hey, who wants to get weird and freaky on Monday? The Sweat, not 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern time in the morning. How about the Sweat After Dark? The Sweat Bracket Breakdown, Monday night, March 18th, the night after Selection Sunday, the night after St. Patrick's Day. So all of you will be fatigued and chilling on your couch with your dogs at home anyway. 6 p.m. Eastern time. to 9 o'clock on DraftKings Network and VSiN. And one of the many faces you will see in that show, Julian Edlow, who is pretty damn good at talking college hoops, Jules. And we're officially inside Championship Saturday. 13 auto bids to the NCAA tournament going to be given out today here, homie. Beyond that, we have plenty of semifinal conference tournament action as well. What did you learn from a wild Friday around college hoops yesterday?
I learned that NC State is, trying to be that Cinderella team that everybody's fallen in love with. They have a cast of characters, and they're making quite a run in the ACC. I don't think it continues, but we'll see. UConn, although St. John's covered, UConn maintained its dominance. They are 8.5-point favorites over Marquette today in the Big East title game. One of the reasons I was happy to grab that UConn number early in terms of them winning that conference tournament. And Houston and Iowa State have just been pounding teams. They are the two best teams in the Big 12, and they will rightfully meet in the final. They've really been rolling through some teams. So there were a lot of fun games yesterday. Auburn as well. Auburn in the SEC. In a conference we had, everybody wants to talk about Tennessee, Kentucky. We've had some big teams fall early in the SEC, and Auburn absolutely steamrolled South Carolina.
Yeah, you think North Carolina has jumped Tennessee for that final number 1 seed right now?
It sounds that way.
Yeah.
If they can finish the job today, which, it's a little bit different when you don't have to beat Duke or even Virginia to win the ACC. But an ACC title is an ACC title, and they keep winning. And with the way, you saw Arizona, who might have been behind them to begin with, go down, and see Tennessee bow out in their first game. It's looking more and more like Carolina could take that 1 seed. But you would think ultimately it doesn't matter that much, because you would think that Tennessee would potentially be the 2 seed in that bracket, and if it was Tennessee that was the 1, maybe Carolina would be the 2. So ultimately, I hope they just land in the same bracket, and it would be those 2 teams, if chalk holds, battling it out in an Elite Eight type of game to go to the Final Four.
We're seeing lower seeds in the SEC win. We're seeing Dan Hurley continuing to attempt to fight fans every weekend, which, essentially they should just allow him to do it. 14 of the 32 automatic bids have been decided entering today, Jules, when the major conference tournaments really start to heat up. For those who have already booked a ticket, though, looking at other conference champions up to this point, which team are you highest on?
Highest on out of these guys that are already going to be in the dance?
Yeah, the ones that have already booked a ticket.
Yeah, out of those ones up there, I would have to go with Drake. Drake's the best team on the board there. They beat Indiana State twice. They beat them in a tough conference championship game, and Drake can hold its own with real teams. We saw Indiana State go to Michigan State and stay competitive for the majority of the game before it kind of got away from them late. So Drake is a team that if I'm a 5-6 seed that's been sputtering a little bit, I'm not thrilled about seeing them in the first round.
With some of these upsets we've seen thus far in these conference tournaments, Jules, what has been the impact on some of the bubble teams right now still hovering on that cut line?
Bubble's really shrinking. Who knows if Virginia did enough to get there? Who knows if Providence did enough to get there? But Dayton is out in the A10. Whoever wins that A10 tournament, the top 4 seeds in the tournament all went down in the A10. So we're going to have a bid stolen out of the Atlantic 10. NC State has a chance to steal a bid. Well, I don't think it'll happen. I don't think it'll happen in the SEC either, but there's a chance for a bid to be stolen there. I guess technically there's still maybe one more out there, but the bubble's shrinking. These bubble teams are winning games and making an argument to put themselves in the field. So teams like Villanova had to beat Marquette. They didn't. They're going to be out. Indiana State was bet from plus money down to like a pick'em on our March Madness bubble tab to get in. They would be huge plus money now to get in because that bubble shrank. I don't think Indiana State is going to be able to get in. So the bubble is shrinking, so to say, and a lot of these teams, if you want to be in the field, win, because a lot of the other teams that were right there did so and are putting a lot of pressure on those other teams that are still trying to get in.
Okay, so which teams today absolutely have to win?
Well, NC State obviously has to win. They would be a fun team to see in there, but they have no chance to get in if they don't. Mississippi State against Auburn, they would have to they have to steal a bid out of the SEC, so they would fit the list. Everybody in the A10, because only the winner of that tournament is getting in, so everybody in the A10 has to win. USF should be in there. I do think they win, but USF should be in there. Florida Atlantic against Temple, they might have to win their tournament, and they can't lose this early as a 12-point favorite. So Florida Atlantic is a team that has to win. And the Mountain West title game is interesting. San Diego State's going to be in. New Mexico is probably in. They worked their way in with a little bit of a run here, but I wouldn't want to leave that up to chance. New Mexico, who's looking like a sharp bet, I will probably be on the Lobos today. New Mexico likely has to win today.
Okay.
And last one, Colorado should be in. Oregon upset Arizona last night. They were down double digits to half and took down Arizona. They're 2.5-point dogs in the Pac-12 game. They are not a tournament team. Oregon has to win if they want to get in.
Which of these smaller conferences that you've just kind of ripped through are going to end up with a high or highest seed come tournament time?
Well, I'll go to a team. I don't know how high they'll be seeded, but I'll go to a team I like a lot. I bet Grand Canyon to win the WAC. They were minus 145 to win the tournament. They got bet up pretty high. They're laying 6 points. They're minus 250 favorites tonight in a very inconvenient 11:30 p.m. Eastern tip against Texas Arlington. Grand Canyon can give teams problems. They're a good team. They beat San Diego State earlier in the year. They'll probably be like an 11 if they're able to win this game and get in. But they're a team that, out of the small conferences, like your Gonzagas and St. Mary's will be seeded the highest. Grand Canyon is a team. I know I mentioned Drake because I couldn't mention Grand Canyon because they haven't won their conference tournament yet. If they do that tonight, they are the team that I don't want to see. The Antelopes are very much for real.
All right, so you just mentioned a couple of these smaller conference finals that are today. Which other conference finals that we will see played today on this Saturday, March 16th, do you have a bet for? Or are you leaning towards the underdog in any of these things? Are you leaning towards the favorite? I'm looking at those Peacocks of St. Peter's, baby. One win away from their second NCAA tournament appearance in 3 seasons. Remember when these guys were the Cinderella just a few years ago?
Hard to forget. That was quite an Elite Eight run. Looking at the rest of the board here, UNC I kind of gave out in the opening segment. I think UNC is even if that game's close at half, is going to run away.
Jules, smaller conferences, the smaller ones.
Small.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No. Let's do the smaller ones. Let's do the ones since it's Championship Saturday. Let's hit on some of those real quick before we go to break.
Okay. I like Vermont, 11 a.m. tip. Vermont against UMass Lowell. These pre-noon tips, by the way, I know you want to bet who's going to win the conference championship game. Yay, that's fun. These pre-noon tips, first half unders are crushing. And when it's a big game like this, maybe a little bit of nerves. So I haven't gotten there yet. I gotta we got to do research fast when these games are put on the board day after day. The matchups aren't set yet, but first half under is probably going to be a play for me in that Vermont UMass Lowell game, and I like Vermont a lot in that one. That's probably the one that jumps out the most to me out of the small conferences. We're counting the Mountain West as a big conference because they have some really good teams, and then Grand Canyon. I already spoke on them, but Grand Canyon, if you're late to the party and don't have a ticket on them to win the WAC, go ahead and lay the 6 tonight. I like that they are playing UT Arlington, because if it had been Tarleton State, who is a very good team and has actually beaten the Antelopes this year, but they're making the transition to D1, they're not tournament eligible. So Grand Canyon would have known in the back of their mind, hey, if we still lose, we're still in the tournament because Tarleton State can't go. Now, if UT Arlington wins, they're in and Grand Canyon's out. So it's a must-win game. If you're late to the party, I don't mind laying 6 with Grand Canyon in the West.
All right, yeah, we'll get to the other big conference finals and semifinals coming up. I know, but I'm just reminding the fine folks at home who are watching us. I'll also remind everyone that coming up after this break, we're going to head to the ice. We got the best in the West clashing in Edmonton. Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, who our hockey panel is giving the edge to this evening. With 33 days left in the NHL regular season, the trade deadline is now behind us, and 18,000 Jaromir Jagr bobbleheads are missing. There is no better time than now to put this show on ice for some NHL opening face-off. Allow me now to introduce Two of my favorites, Jeff Ulrich at DK Network, NHL.com's Pete Jensen. Top of the morning to both of you. Jeff, what do you plan on doing with those 18,000 bobbleheads?
Oh, I mean, I'm just going to save them for future generations, pass them down to my great grandkids. They should be worth at least $6 a pop by then. I mean, we'll just create a family legacy, really.
Yeah, and that's $6 Canadian, which we know is quite a bit these days. Pete, you're the nicest guy I know, so it definitely wasn't you. I will ask you, though, which team made the best move in your eyes at the trade deadline?
I will say that the stunner with Tomas Hertl going to the defending champion Vegas Golden Knights really blew me away. And if they get healthy at the right time of year, they're still the team to beat out there. Right now on the DraftKings odds board, they're tied for 8th in the pecking order. So maybe a little sprinkle on the defending champs is worthwhile, considering Hertl could be back in as little as 2 weeks. They also went out and made other splashes and got Noah Hannafin and Anthony Mantha, who's a 20-goal scorer. So really nice job sweeping the deal here.
Ulrich, some teams made blockbusters, others stood pat. Some only made minor tweaks to their roster. Who are you giving a high grade to?
I'll be dead honest. I really like what the Colorado Avalanche did. A lot of the people probably say getting rid of Bowen Byram, but I mean, Sean Walker was a really heady pickup in my opinion. I think just getting rid of Ryan Johansson and getting Casey Middlestead back, it's already paid dividends. I mean, this is a team that you just look since the trade deadline. They just look like they're flowing a lot better. Comeback win against the Canucks, comeback win against the Flames, 5 in a row. I think that the Avalanche made some good moves. This was already a very good team. And I just like the sort of chemistry moves. I think at the deadline, we get too involved with, this team picked up all these guys, but they have to click. And I think for the Avalanche, their moves were more about that than anything. Just getting this team to flow a little bit better. Really like what they did. Obviously, also like what the Hurricanes did. They needed to do this at some point and just get a score and really go for it. And they did this year.
Yeah, and speaking of the Hurricanes there, Jeff, they will be taking on the Maple Leafs tonight, and the Maple Leafs added some depth and grit at the deadline. Carolina just had a big win, shutting out Florida, the best team in the NHL, on Thursday night. How much do you like Carolina's chances tonight?
This is an interesting game. I mean, I think that it's a good barometer for where these two teams are at. Obviously, the Canes kind of eye-opening win, but if the Leafs could come in and hold ground at home, I mean, certainly that would be building a lot of confidence. I'm going to lean the Hurricanes here. I just think that the Leafs are a little bit too up and down. This is a good spot for Carolina to kind of come in, potentially just grab a lead, with their newfound depth and just hold on. But I mean, if I was playing a play in this game, and obviously it's Saturday, we don't quite have the odds yet, but or they're certainly just came out, but I would play the under here. Carolina's been 19-12 to the under on the road. I think this is going to be a close sort of playoff style game. So I do like, I'd rather look to the under here than pick a side, to be honest.
Pete, Carolina's a team that people have been waiting to fully break through. Maybe that win on Thursday night is the start.
Absolutely. There are not many teams out there, maybe other than Vegas if they get healthy, or, maybe Florida if it's a rematch of the Eastern Conference Final. But to me, and Edmonton I like as well. I picked them in the preseason. I picked them to beat the Hurricanes, but I might flip on that based on what I see down the stretch. Kuznetsov and Gensel, both trade deadline acquisitions, playing together on the second line. You got to love that. Healthy Svechnikov, that's a huge deal for the playoffs. And also Freddie Anderson back in the crease. I mean, that team has it all right now. I'm surprised that Carolina is not like the favorite across the board in all the books right now. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and Florida remains atop the Atlantic. And despite being shut out on Thursday, Panthers still 14-4, guys, since February 1st. Panthers hosting the Lightning tonight. And the Lightning find themselves in an extremely tight wild card race in the East. How do you see this one playing out tonight, Pete?
I think the Lightning are a serious offensive force. What they did to the Rangers yesterday, Braden Point just exploding. And that's what those guys are capable of. That whole pack of teams is a little dysfunctional beneath them, right? Between the Red Wings, the Sabres, those teams play each other on Saturday, by the way. The Islanders had a 6-game winning streak and then, have been bowing out so far this week. So Tampa, to me, as long as Point, Kucherov, Hedman, Vasilevsky are healthy, Stamkos as well. How about Stamkos playing on the second line with Anthony Duclair? I feel like that really adds an important element of secondary scoring to a Lightning team that is not nearly as deep as the championship years, but now they might be again.
Yeah, Jeff, which side do you like in this Sunshine State showdown?
Yeah, no, I think the Anthony Duclair signing or trade, excuse me, was, maybe a little bit under the radar, but I mean, Tampa, maybe everyone had written them off. I certainly did not like the way they were playing, like even last week, but 2 big wins in a row here. I kind of like them for the upset in this one. Florida, again, I think Florida's going to be absolutely fine, but you get the problem with these teams when they're so far out in front, they've been playing good hockey. They will go through lulls. It's impossible to keep your concentration for the entire season. Certainly got waxed by Carolina. I mean, I think this is going to be a close game, but I kind of like taking the underdog here with Tampa Bay as well. I think that the extra scoring really is something they needed just to take a little bit of the pressure off, Point Kucherov.
All right, Jeff, tonight, elsewhere on this slate, let's talk best in the West. We got a sexy star-filled matchup in Jeff Ulrich country as the Oilers host the Avs. Connor McDavid versus Nathan MacKinnon, the 2 front runners here for the Hart Trophy. Both these teams 7-2-1 in their last 10. Which side are you giving the edge to, and why is it your hometown team?
So first of all, I mean, if you don't typically stay up late to watch like West Coast hockey, you probably should tonight. I mean, these are the two, like potentially the 2 funnest teams in the league. I mean, we could see an absolute barn burner here. I mean, it was 6-5 kind of thing with a like 5 lead changes. These kind of things are on the table at this point in the year with both these teams contending, playing the top, the way they are really right now at the top of their game. I am going to lean Colorado, to be honest. As I said, I really like the moves they made at the deadline. I think they were a little bit better than the ones the Oilers made, to be honest. The Oilers added some good depth. Certainly, I don't hate the moves, but I would give the edge to the Avalanche there, and I give the edge to the Avalanche in overall play. Oilers waxing, the Capitals in their last game, that's fine, but I think they could catch them a little bit. The Avs have really been on a tear this Western Conference road trip. I'm going to say they win like a 6-5 squeaker. Again, this is one where, like the under in that Carolina-Toronto game, I would just bet the over in this one. I think you're going to see a ton of goals.
Yeah, and Pete, MacKinnon loves nothing more than playing inside Ball Arena, where he's recorded at least 1 point in each of Colorado's 32 games this season.
Yeah, he really has a chance to go the full gauntlet and have a point in every home game this season, something that a couple of months ago we thought would be almost a guarantee that he would have at least one blip on that radar, but he's not stopping at all. One guy that poses a threat to him, though, Stuart Skinner, the goalie for the Edmonton Oilers, just looking at his body of work after a really rough start to the season, 28-8-2 with a .917 save percentage and 2 shutouts in 39 games since their coaching change. So there's no bigger beneficiary of that than Stuart Skinner. Maybe he steals some of the thunder and gives Edmonton a little advantage here in this clash of the Titans.
Well, right now, guys, the race to first place in the Central, it's thrilling, it's exciting. Colorado is neck and neck with Winnipeg and Dallas, but the Stars have been playing with fire lately, Pete. They've been a little streaky. They've got a tough test against the Kings tonight, who continue to be in the bottom half of the league in goals scored. How difficult will it be for them to knock off Dallas on the road?
I'm kind of losing my trust in Dallas a little bit. I love their depth. I love Jake Ottinger from his past pedigree, but he wasn't that great in the playoffs last year, and he's got a sub-900 save percentage this year. Some shaky games lately. They lost to the Devils, who have been struggling to beat anybody. I know that Jake Allen won his debut against them, but still a lot of spotty performances lately. The Kings are a good road team this year. Don't discount them. But Dallas also, looking back about a week ago, they won both games against the San Jose Sharks, who are the worst team in the league. One was like 3-2 in overtime or shootout, and the other one, they had to come back from 6-3 down in the third period to beat the Sharks. So those are glaring concerns for me. I'm looking for more consistency, hopefully, from Dallas down the stretch.
Yeah, Jeff, you think we start to see some of that consistency show up here? A minute to go.
It's tough. I mean, they've been up and down all year. This is a tough one to call, to be honest. Tough one to handicap. The Kings are really no more consistent. They do have a good road record, but they're going to be at a rest disadvantage. I'd probably trust the Stars in this one. I think the Stars get it together after having a bad loss in their last outing.
All right, gentlemen, very quickly, your top DFS play tonight, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I like Nico Rantanen in that shootout game. Also like Alex Nylander for the Columbus Blue Jackets playing the Sharks.
All right, Pete, hook me up. Give me a name.
Bowen Byram, he's leading the Sabres back to relevance here. 5 points, 3 goals, 2 assists, and 12 shots on goal in his first 4 games. And Buffalo's suddenly back in playoff contention, if you can believe it.
All right, gentlemen, your job here is done. Coming up next, sky-high expectations for the Yankees come crashing back down to earth by injuries to Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole. It's a menacing sign for New York. Fuchs, remember when everybody was like, oh, dude, the Yankees have Juan Soto. They've got the reigning Cy Young Award winner, Aaron Judge, is going to hit 90 piss missiles for the people. You remember that? Everyone's really excited, those expectations?
That's right.
Yeah, they're not as high anymore here. So good news for Yankees fans and the team.
Yep.
Cole's going to miss 10 to 12 weeks with his right elbow injury. That's good news because originally everyone's thinking Tommy John surgery. He's not going to need.
That's not necessarily ruled out either.
Okay, all right.
We're not there yet. Well, go on. Do your intro.
Okay, all right. No, that's fine. If you got something to add it. Judge has appeared in one game, has not appeared in a game since last Sunday.
Yep.
When he had 2 at-bats, he struck out twice, and then now he's got this ab strain. We've been talking a lot about abs, dude's abs here. And right now, Aaron Boone said days ago, hey, he's going to be back in the lineup today.
Yep.
And he says yesterday, not so fast, probably not, did resume swinging in the cages. Question for you, how much do these injuries derail New York's offseason? And maybe even how you would navigate futures markets for either the team as a whole, or maybe other players who could step in here.
I mean, these are detrimental injuries, right? And like, at least for Aaron Judge, the blow is softened a bit because they have Juan Soto in the mix. Imagine this team without, Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. The Cole thing is very worrisome because that rotation is a big question mark really behind Cole. Like, yes, they brought in Marcus Stroman. He's a good pitcher. He's a ground ball specialist. He should do well in New York. But really after that, 3 through 5 is just a massive question mark. With Carlos Rodon, who really hasn't looked that great in the spring, his velocity has been down, I think about 2 miles per hour on his fastball. That's not a great sign from where he ended last year. Obviously I realize that people are ramping up in spring training, but we're about a week and a half away from opening day at this point. You kind of want to see them at that level where they were to end last year. If Cole ends up needing Tommy John surgery, I mean, this is massive for this rotation, right? They tried to go out and get Dylan Cease. Cease ended up going to the Padres of all team, which was kind of out of left field. But this is what's worrisome for me is that he's going to miss these 10 to 12 weeks. The idea is that hopefully he can come back. They're just really going to go easy with him, I feel like, for the entire year. Maybe give him some extra rest. I don't feel like you're going to see the full Garrett Cole that you're going to be used to seeing on a every 5-day basis here. So this is worrisome for me because then you need to rely upon Marcus Stroman as your number 1, and then Carlos Rodon if he can stay healthy, because they have basically said that they're not going to go out and get Blake Snell, and Blake Snell's looking like he's heading to the Astros if you read the recent rumors. So then it's Jordan Montgomery, and then who is really after that if they even go out to get somebody, which I said they really don't want to. So I think this is very worrisome here. I said at the top of the show I'm taking the under on their win total, going under 91.5 wins. I like the Orioles to win this division here. I think fading the Yankees while they're still favorites in a lot of these categories is kind of the way to go right now.
And you were never high on the Yankees to begin with. Not nearly as high as other analysts out there.
Yeah, because like I mentioned, this lineup is essentially the same as it was last year with the addition of Juan Soto. And don't get me wrong, you add Juan Soto, that is a dynamic add to your lineup. But then the rest of it, like I said at the top of the show, this team scored more runs than only 5 other teams last year. And a lot of those teams that they scored more runs were like the Guardians, the Tigers, the Athletics. Not exactly teams that you're excited that you beat out in runs scored. They hit 249 as a club for the entire year. That was only better than the Oakland Athletics. It wasn't like this was a barn burner offense to begin with. Soto's going to bring a huge part to that lineup at the top of the lineup. But when you get to that, especially that bottom half of the lineup, boy, that could really struggle during the dog days of the summer.
Yeah, you mentioned the Cease move and how now he's not even available for the Yankees because the Padres and White Sox finalized what ought to serve as really the final blockbuster of the MLB offseason. That was on Wednesday night, this deal that sends the righty to San Diego in exchange for a 3-prospect, 4-player package here, Steven. How big of a move is this? How much will this help the Padres here?
I'm really torn on this deal. First and foremost, March 13th should be Dylan Cease Day because he got the hell out of Chicago.
Yeah.
So that should be something that we should celebrate to get a good player out of Chicago, get out of that cesspool in the White Sox. The package is great for the White Sox, like really good for the White Sox. Like if you remember, the Padres, one of their biggest strengths has been their minor league system and the guys that they have in there. So some of the guys that went, especially Zavala, I like Zavala a lot, going to the White Sox. That's huge for the White Sox that, maybe in 2 to 3 years, they're not this cesspool that they are right now. Now, where does this put the Padres now that they have Dylan Cease? Well, they needed to add to that rotation because, quite frankly, they lost Blake Snell. They never really replaced him after that. Is Dylan Cease a equitable replacement for Blake Snell? I would say that he is, if he can get back to his form that we saw back in 2022. If you remember, back in 2022, there was a stretch of time where he didn't allow more than one earned run in a start. He went 14 straight starts where he allowed either 1 or 0 runs in a start. That is a Cy Young caliber pitcher that we saw in 2022. We saw kind of the opposite last year. His walks were up. He kind of got away from his slider, which was odd. He went to more for his curveball, and opposing hitters were crushing his curveball. They were hitting like 298 against his curveball last year, and he was getting away from the slider that really was like his out pitch the year prior. So I'd love to see him get back to that slider, get away from the curveball a little bit, and I think we'll see some success there. He's got to bring down the walks as well. The only thing that I worry about is that the pitching is pretty good for the Padres, but is the offense going to be enough? Because they had to shed so much payroll in this offseason because they were just so bloated with these contracts that they weren't going to be able to sustain these guys, and hence that's why they traded away Juan Soto. So I do have some concerns about that lineup. It's very, very top heavy. You got Machado, Tatis, Cronenworth, those guys up at the top there, but once you get to the bottom half, it gets real ugly real fast for the Padres. They're in that death division that's known as the NL West with the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks there as well. So, does this help them? Yes. Does this put them in a playoff position? Maybe, because there are some good teams in the National League, especially in the Central. The Central is very much up for grabs. So I do like their prospect. I like the move that they were able to make. It is a equitable, a swap for Blake Snell, but it was a pretty steep price for them to get Cease.
And Cease had a pretty good spring training outing earlier in the week against the Reds, quieting their hitters, 8 strikeouts there, and he acknowledged that the performances like he had on Tuesday helped convince other GMs to meet the White Sox's steep asking price to acquire him because, Steve, you made a great point. You can question right now if the Padres, who are projected to play around like 500 ball, should be moving 4 players, 3 of them top prospects here for a relatively short-term addition.
And real quickly, too, it's like the White Sox didn't have to make that move.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of interest for Cease, obviously before this trade was even made. Obviously it became heightened once the Cole news came out, and that's why the Yankees were trying to do that, because even though they are supposedly getting Cole back in maybe a month and a half, they already realized that he's not going to be 100%. So the asking price for Cease could really be whatever the White Sox wanted because they know that they hold all the cards here. This is one of the premier guys that are, on the market right now that you don't have to go out and sign and hand one of those big contracts. So they didn't have to make this move, which forced the Padres to kind of overpay in this scenario, and that's why this deal was made.
So now we likely see Cease's debut maybe in South Korea with the Padres?
I don't think it's going to be in South Korea. Okay. So I think they're going with... who are they opening with there? I forget who they're opening with.
Is it Darvish?
Yes, thank you. Yep. It's Darvish, and then it's Musgrove, I believe, is lined up for Game 2. So we'll probably see Cease in this extended spring training, and then we'll see him during the regular season.
Yeah, so we will see at least the Dodgers debut of Ohtani and Yamamoto in this series in South Korea, which you shared off the top of the show. You're not a huge fan of 6 a.m. baseball here in the States, and really what the point is of this series, which, by the way, Shohei Ohtani loves to sleep. He brings this mattress with him around the country, halfway across the world. He has said before, sleep is my top priority. He tries to get 10 hours at night, every night, Steve,
That's insane.
plus a 2-hour nap before a game. So essentially, this guy sleeps half a day every day, 12 of the 24 hours in a day here, man. So the numbers are up. The odds are up here for this series. not a shocker. The Dodgers are pretty heavily favored here. Do you have any leans right now, days out from the 6 a.m. baseball game?
Yeah, I definitely like the Dodgers in game one when you got Glasnow and Darvish. I mean, obviously Darvish has been fine, but the walks can be a big issue for him. And this is a very, very tough lineup to go through. Like, it's going to be very rare that you're going to see the Dodgers be underdogs really at any point this season. Like, I was trying to go through my head, like, is there a potential where the Dodgers will be underdogs, barring some injury or something? Like, it's really hard to figure that out when that's going to happen here. So I would be backing the Dodgers in game one. Obviously, it's a steep price. It's minus 198 on the money line right now for the Dodgers. You can get them at minus 1.5 on the run line, which is minus 115, which is not a bad one. But I also don't like getting run line favorites that are on the road, or the road team, I should say, because obviously can't bat in the ninth. So you do take away potential ninth inning at bats there. But yeah, it's hard not to like the Dodgers, especially with how good Glasnow has looked in the spring. His stuff has been great. It's going to be a tough matchup for them to start in game one.
All right, Bukes, good stuff, man. You have earned this upcoming break because Jules will return. We got some bigger conferences that are going to crown tournament champions today. So let's rip through and have Jules dish out some best bets on this conference championship Saturday. How about an all North Carolina ACC final today in DC? Yes, please. The Tar Heels and Wolfpack. And you know what's great for all those fans in North Carolina? Boom! Howie! Pan on over, baby. The DraftKings Sportsbook live now in North Carolina, so you can put your money where your mouth is. If you're in the Triangle area today, pick a side or maybe pop a couple Duke futures on that betting card for those of you Blue Devils sitting at home on your comfy couch. Jules, you've already said multiple times throughout this show, you are feeling North Carolina today, not the Wolfpack. So the Tar Heels and the Tar Heels State, my dude. Remind the people at home again why that is.
Yeah, it's a great story for NC State, but at some point the gas is going to run out, and it somehow was not last night in overtime, playing well past midnight on the East Coast in their fourth game in 4 days. But now they have to come back, and I know it's a 8:30 Eastern tip-off, so a little bit you get the day to recover. But 5 games in 5 days, you're now going to play against the best team in the conference that is much more well-rested. UNC matches up pretty well with NC State. The number is what it is here for a reason. I think UNC does blow the Wolfpack out. I would lay the points with them. I think they're a good money line parlay piece. And then team total wise, I think that tired legs are going to catch up to NC State here. So 77.5 is the team total for the Tar Heels. I would go over that. They scored 79 against the Wolfpack a couple of weeks ago. They've gone over this in 3 of their last 4 games. I think UNC should put a big number on NC State in a pretty lopsided win. Tired legs catch up to NC State here.
Yeah, as a man who's played 3 men's league games in a row, I can tell you tired legs is a real thing, Jules. How much would a Wolfpack upset, though, while unlikely, if it happens, how much would that shake things up ahead of Selection Sunday?
Oh, it'd shake things up a ton because that steals yet another bid, and we're seeing a lot of bids stolen so far. So those teams, the Indiana States, the Providences, the Virginias, they're rooting for UNC in this game because NC State win takes one more bubble spot away, and those teams that have been on the bubble and lost these last couple of days are going to be sitting pretty uneasy with that. So an NC State win, while we don't currently know which team it would be, an NC State win would clearly take a bid away from one of these other teams. We just don't know who it would be yet.
All right, the matchup everybody wanted in the Big 12 tournament finale is the matchup we will get as we hammer away now on some of the bigger conference finals on tap here. So we're talking the number 1 seed Houston facing the number 2 seed Iowa State, third meeting of the season between these two teams. The two split the regular season series. Both the home teams winning. This should be a close one. What do you think here, Jules?
Yeah, and this will be closer to a home game for Iowa State. If you watched that game last night against Baylor, Iowa State blew them out, and it was, they call it Hinkle South. It was a home game for the Cyclones. So they're going to have the advantage there, and the home teams won each game in the season. So I think that Iowa State does have some advantages here, but the way that Houston is playing, they are just strangling the life out of the opposition. Now, the total down at 121.5, I don't mind going over. It's 2 defensive teams, but they've been pushing the pace a little bit more. They've been playing great defense in the tournament, but they've been able to score. So which side, I guess, is going to prevail, which style is going to prevail in this game? I think over 121.5 is not a huge ask. It's going to be a tough atmosphere, but the way Houston is playing, I cannot go against them right now. So I would lean to Houston in this game. I know Iowa State is going to be considered somewhat of a home dog and take some sharp bets, but I can't go against the way Houston is performing right now.
All right, dude, let's make our way to the Big East because the defending national champion, the top-seeded UConn Huskies, are looking to win the tournament championship when they face third-seeded and defending tournament champion in Marquette here. So UConn winning both regular season meetings with Marquette. We had an 81-53 home win February 17th, a 74-67 victory in Milwaukee on March 6th. How much can you look at those matchups and the way they paired up against each other and apply it to today?
Yeah, it's going to apply. UConn has owned Marquette this year. They had the big win at home by whatever that was, 30 or so points with Tyler Kolek in. And then they went to Milwaukee with Tyler Kolek out, Marquette's starting point guard, reigning Big East Player of the Year, and took care of business and covered the number and won by 8 or so there. So now this is a home game for UConn. And while they've dominated them this season, like you said, this is still a little bit of a revenge spot for Marquette bouncing UConn at MSG in this tournament last year. So I think we're going to see the best from the Huskies. I think we're going to see it out of the gates. 9 is a big number for the game. I would lay the first half with UConn. I think they're going to come out and look pretty sharp. And Marquette, while they looked really good first half against Providence, hasn't been the best first half team all season. I think that UConn comes out here, creates some margin early. Hopefully, this is one of the ones we gave out on Working Up a Sweat last week. Hopefully you got ahead of things and just went UConn to win the Big East tournament. Don't have to lay any points. We just got a minus 135 in this game. So that's what I'll be riding here. Go Huskies.
Okay, who are you riding in the Pac-12 championship game here? That was a big upset by Oregon over Arizona.
Huge upset. Not to mention it wasn't, generally when those happen, the underdog comes out and kind of looks good and then has to hang on. This was the complete opposite. Arizona came out and dominated Oregon. Oregon was down double digits and came back in the second half. So Oregon's not that type of team that has that firepower, and they were able to accomplish that, which was impressive. Now they got to turn around and see if they can handle Colorado. Colorado is in the field. Oregon is not. So this is another one of those. Is Oregon going to steal a bid here? Huge game for them, but I kind of like the way Colorado is playing. Colorado is the team that preseason was supposed to be Arizona's prime competition, I would say, in the Pac-12, and they're starting. They've been really bad on the road all year, but they've been solid on neutral floors, and they're really starting to capture some of that potential. So I don't know if I'll have a play on this one or not, but I would definitely lean to the Buffs. Oregon, quick turnaround after a huge win. I know they need to win, but could be a little bit of a letdown spot for them.
All right, well, let's make our way down to the Mountain West, my friend. So the Mountain West final right now, pairing up a couple teams. Which one are you backing, Jules?
Yeah, this is a tough one. San Diego State's been rolling. They have the most impressive win. They won by 16 last night over the 1 seed Utah State. But New Mexico is still right on that bubble. I think they should be in regardless. But, apparently they may need one more win. Betting splits-wise, New Mexico is early, one of the sharper plays of the day. 25% of the bets for 44% of the handle on the spread, 24% of the bets for 54% of the handle on the money line. That said, San Diego State is tough. We know that. This isn't the team that made the Final Four, made the national championship game last year, but they've been playing really, really well. I might take some time to decide on this one. I was leaning towards New Mexico earlier in the day. San Diego State is going to be a really, really tough out, but they don't need it as much. So New Mexico is also, I'm talking about the tired legs, New Mexico has had to play one more game. This is going to be their 4th game in 4 days. And they're good win over Colorado State, but Colorado State was the 7th seed, a little bit less impressive of a path than San Diego State, let's say. So huge game for the Lobos, but will they be able to get it against a San Diego State team that's played really well against them and can dominate on defense? I'm going to take a little bit of time probably to warm up to that one.
Yeah, San Diego State has not been very good against the spread when favored by 2 or more points this season. Just 11-12 in that department, Jules.
Yes, but good in this tournament. They've been a short favorite every game in this Mountain West tournament, and they've been getting the job done. A lot of people questioned why they were favored, given their seeding and given that they didn't need to win the tournament, why they were so heavily favored in this tournament. And then these numbers come out, and San Diego State's favored by 2, 3, 4 points in every game, and they've been winning them. They did go to overtime with UNLV, but they got the job done. So it's not a role that San Diego State has thrived in throughout the course of the season. But in terms of what have you done for me lately, they have been thriving in this role in this tournament in Vegas.
So as any other bets on your card right now, even from some of those smaller conferences maybe we didn't touch on in the earlier men's basketball block?
I'll go to the A10.
Okay.
I do like VCU against St. Joe's. You're laying 2.5 there or minus 142 on the money line. I like the way VCU's playing. They defend well. They've been scoring pretty well. They looked very good in their win over UMass. And St. Joe's has been solid. They knocked off Richmond. They got another good win. But I think ultimately after the day off, it catches up to them a little bit more. I think VCU is overall the better team here and is going to take this one. And VCU, the Rams, not a bad bet to win the A10. They'll be favored if they do go on to win. They'll be favored against the winner of that St. Bonnie's Duquesne.
Yep.
So I think that if you do like the Rams, not a bad idea to go small bet on them to win the A10. Interesting tournament in the A10. The top 4 seeds all went down when they took the floor. So we have a serious bid stealer coming out of the Atlantic 10.
Okay, we'll rip through some more semifinals coming up later in this show. Yeah, Duquesne's going to have to knock off a team now that it's beaten already twice this season. The Bonnies,
Yep.
Baby. I'm a big Bonnies household, man. That's right. Look
Bonnies really let me down in the past.
Yeah, it's all good. Hang
Anyways.
in there because we have some NBA questions for you coming up next. Let's dish out some
All right.
bets.
Welcome back to The Sweat. I am Steve Buchanan, getting in for Emerson. Recent surveys have concluded that we need a little less Emerson, so we have obliged by that, gave him this segment off, and now Julian and I are going to talk a little NBA, my friend. Julian, let me just get a little reaction from you last night. Not a crazy slate last night, but a huge win for the Pelicans in a pivotal matchup there against the Clippers. That gave the Pelicans the series lead now 3-1, and obviously that could come into play when seeding comes around there. They would obviously have the advantage at this point here, but Zion Williamson with arguably maybe one of his best games of the season, over 30 points in that game, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Just kind of give us a little summary of how the Pelican season has been as of late and kind of the resurgence of Zion. I think this is what everyone kind of expected from him when he was drafted 4 years ago.
Yeah, the Pelicans have been a frustrating team because they have all the talent. We just haven't seen it come all the way together. And they were a team that last year I backed. I backed them over their 44.5 win total. I played them at plus 200 over a 48.5 win total alternate. I was feeling very pleased when the calendar flipped to January 1st and the Pelicans were the 1 seed in the Western Conference. They went on to miss the playoffs. That's how much injuries affected them and how much the wheels kind of came off for the Pelicans. So big win against the Clippers. I like to see them when they're at full health get wins against quality teams, contending teams, and they did that. They're 40-26. They're the 5 seed in the Western Conference who would play the 4-seeded Clippers if the playoffs were to start today. So that was a big win, an impactful win for them. And they, when healthy, they're a team nobody talks about. A lot of people talk about the higher seeded Thunder and Timberwolves, who we'll touch on. They're a team, when healthy, that can cause problems. I don't think they'll ultimately win the Western Conference, but if I'm a top 4 seed, they're not the team that I want to see myself matched up with in the first round.
And obviously it'll be interesting to see how this plays out here, but with the Timberwolves kind of, fluttering a little bit here, losing that number 1 seed recently, Pelicans kind of rising up here. Definitely we'll see how that seeding kind of matches out. Any just real quick thoughts here on that Western Conference with how this is kind of shaped out over the past week or so?
Yeah, it's going to be regardless of where the cards land, it's going to set up a wild play-in round and wild first-round matchups. But we've kind of had that the last 2 years, so it's not all that different. It's just, what are the matchups going to be? I think ultimately a lot of us haven't believed in the Thunder and Timberwolves as actual contenders, as maybe teams that can take the 1 seed in the West, although Denver now sits a half game up on OKC and a game and a half up on Minnesota. They're very good teams that could potentially make some noise, but let's just, for the sake of for the sake of the argument, say that the Suns, Lakers, Warriors wind up in the bottom of the bracket. If the Thunder and Timberwolves get any of those matchups, I think a lot of people are going to be picking against them, and I think that they would probably be underdogs. That meaning OKC and Minnesota would probably be underdogs to the lower seeded teams that whether they land the 6th seed to play a 3-seeded Wolves team or come out of a play-in round to play OKC. Just like last year, the Lakers came through the play-in round and were favored over Memphis and beat Memphis. I think we're going to see a similar scenario shake up just with these good veteran teams, even Dallas down there, depending on how they're playing with Luka Doncic. I think that a lot of these teams at the bottom of the bracket are ultimately going to be favored over Minnesota and OKC, and not just favored, but popular bets.
All right, let's talk about some of the Eastern Conference games that we have going today. Cleveland and Houston start off the slate here at 5 o'clock. We got Brooklyn at Indiana, Charlotte at Philly, Washington at Chicago, New York at Sacramento. Anything kind of jump at you at any of those games? Obviously with the Cavaliers, specifically just got back Donovan Mitchell, one of the closer spread games here going up against the Rockets.
Yeah, I do actually like laying the 4.5 with Cleveland on the road here. It's looking like a sharp bet in terms of the spread on DK Sportsbook, 61% of the bets for 84% of the handle. They got Donovan Mitchell back, and they got a big win over the Pelicans in his return. You look at Houston, they've had a good season. They've been a very good home team, but they're now sitting in the 11 seed. They're 3.5 games back of who's sitting in the 10 right now? Is it Golden State? Yeah, Golden State. So they're 3.5 back of Golden State. Starting to look like lottery time for Houston. They're starting to maybe let go of the rope a little bit. And meanwhile, Cleveland is they've been really up and down, but I like what I saw from them in their first game with Mitchell back, and even with guys like Mobley out, they have plenty of capable pieces in that lineup against Houston, who is dinged up. You go without Alperen Şengün, that's a really big piece, and you're starting center against a team that plays with a lot of size in Cleveland. So I think from an individual matchup standpoint, the loss of Şengün for this game really hurts Houston, and we should see that benefit Cleveland on the floor as this game plays out.
And just talking about Cleveland here, how do we feel about them or the Knicks going further in the playoffs? Cleveland right now is pretty solidified in that number 3 spot. Knicks 3 games back in the 4 seed. Which team do you kind of like better between the two?
Yeah, it's totally going to depend on seeding for me. So right now we have the Knicks in the 4. That would be, if they can get through the first round, a second round matchup against Boston, which I would take the Celtics. If Cleveland and Milwaukee hold at 2-3, I think that's a good series, Milwaukee against Cleveland in the second round. That obviously, if you look at to win the Eastern Conference, those odds suggest that Milwaukee would be heavily favored in a series against Cleveland, but not as heavily favored as the Celtics would be against the Knicks. Now, if you told me that the Cavs are the team that slips down, well, then I'll give the Knicks a crack against the Bucks and tell you that it's going to be Cleveland that has the worst chance to advance. So the matchup plays a huge role. The seeding, the matchup plays a huge role. But I'm also not sold on this Bucks team. The Bucks had a terrible stretch when Doc Rivers took over, and they could easily slip again. Celtics and Bucks play each other 2 times still in the last month of the regular season. Let's say the Celtics take both of those, and the Bucks have some other bad losses and slide down the standings. Well, now Milwaukee could be that 4 seed that comes into Boston, and the Knicks and Cavs could be in that 2-3 matchup. So to kind of loop it all together, who's going to do better in the playoffs? If the Cavs and Knicks play well and the Bucks don't, this very well could be answered in a second round matchup head to head between Cleveland and the Knicks of who goes further. And I bet the Cavs in the first round against the Knicks last year. The Knicks absolutely dominated them. We'll see if that, if the matchup holds, if the Knicks are still able to dominate Cleveland, or if the Cavs are able to get a little bit of revenge. I think I would take the Knicks again. So I guess the better chance in the playoffs, as long as the Knicks can get out of that 4 seed, I'll go New York. But I think it would be really interesting if we did get these teams head to head.
Let's go to that big Warriors-Lakers game that we have going on tonight. Looking like Curry is going to be playing tonight. Is listed as probable. Draymond Green is questionable with that back injury, but the Lakers have been dominant, basically straight up dominant at home this season. Who are you liking in this one? Lakers are 2.5-point favorites as the home team, and also we have the highest total on the slate here at 234.
Yeah, lean to the Lakers. If I play the game, it'll be them. LeBron plays very well against Golden State. LeBron gets up for these games. So does Steph Curry, but we need to see how that ankle looks. Draymond dinged up. The Warriors are just a little dinged up heading into this game. And I know we had the previous Saturday night one that went to double overtime that the Lakers won by 1 on a LeBron game-winning free throw. So it is a little bit of a revenge spot for Golden State, sure. But I like the matchup a little bit better for the Lakers. Golden State also in that 10 seed, a game back of the Lakers, maybe a little more desperate seeding-wise as well. So you can make the case for Golden State, but I think it's a little more desperate of a case for Golden State because they just saying that they need it, they want revenge, whereas you look at the numbers, you look at the matchup on paper, it's Ben Hall Lakers. And I don't mind coming in with some LeBron props as well. He always plays well against the Warriors. He takes these primetime Saturday night games seriously. If you want to look at LeBron, double-double, triple-double, maybe some combination of rebounds, assists over, I don't mind any of that as well.
Let's just quickly go over this Western Conference here. The Timberwolves were the team at the top for quite a while here. They've been knocked out of that top spot with the Nuggets and Thunder, now tied for that top seed there. Karl Anthony Towns obviously done for the season with some knee surgery here. Between the Thunder and the Timberwolves, who do you like better to go further? And how much are we going to see change in this conference in the final month and a half or so?
Yeah, so it's the OKC and the 2 seed right now, Minnesota and the 3. I trust Minnesota more as a playoff team. They have a little bit. They have more experience. They have some experience. I think their calling card is on defense, and that plays out in the playoffs. So I trust Minnesota. The thing is, if OKC and Minnesota did play head to head in the second round, I would maybe lean OKC in a head to head, which is interesting. But I think OKC would have a real chance to lose in the first round to Phoenix, the Lakers, the Warriors in their first big postseason spot. So I'm going to go to Minnesota. I think they would have the better chance, but both of these teams are going to be an upset watch in the first round.
All right, NFL free agency kicked off during the week. We're going to try to sift through the madness and what it means for the league this upcoming season. We'll be right back.
All right, Rams star defensive tackle Aaron Donald is calling it a career at 32 years young. He will go down as one of the most decorated and dominant defensive players the NFL has ever seen, announcing the news on social media yesterday to the relief of quarterbacks all over the league. A league that has been jam-packed with free agent news left and right since the new year opened up earlier in the week. I'm Emerson Latzia. Steve Buchanan is back. Julian Edlow is back. What's been your favorite free agent signing so far, Steve?
You know, I think there's a lot of obvious ones that people will go out there and say. So I'm going to give a couple that I think have kind of flown under the radar a bit that I think are going to have some impacts. I love Hollywood Brown going to the Chiefs. Like, they needed that second wide receiver that's not named Rashee Rice to do some damage and do some damage kind of downfield, because it was, you know, if it was MVS or Mecole Hardman, like, they were barely even catching anything if they were getting those targets downfield. But, like, he has a chance to be the true wide receiver 2 in this pass-first offense here. Like, obviously, the year he came off of from last year, 51 catches, 574 yards, only 4 touchdowns. Never even went over 100 yards, which is unfathomable for a guy of his talent here. Only went over 80 yards twice here. It just didn't work out in Arizona. Like, that stuff happens, okay? But the first 3 years in Baltimore, don't forget those years. Like, this was somebody that was averaging just under 900 receiving yards per year, 21 total touchdowns in that offense. Put him in with the Chiefs. I think that's a really, really good spot. And then real quickly, just Josh Jacobs going to the Packers. 4 years, $48 million. A little bit of an overpay for a running back here, but this kind of feels like getting a younger version of Aaron Jones on that team, who Aaron Jones is now gone and with the Vikings at this point. But he's running with a much, much better offensive line in front of him than what he had with the Raiders. Should find a lot of success here if he can stay healthy. But like, that feels like maybe one of the real pivotal pieces that the Green Bay offense really kind of needed at the end of the day, because obviously Jones being injured a lot kind of hampered that for that offense. But love Jacobs going to the Packers. Love Marquise Brown going to the Chiefs. I think those are 2 really solid moves that we saw during the week.
Chiefs preseason win total right now sitting at 11.5. I think that opened up around 10.5.
I think you're right. Okay. I think it was 10.5. Yeah.
And by the way, Andy Reid's message to Hollywood Brown when he was texting him said, "Hollywood, think red today. KC red with diamonds." And apparently Hollywood Brown was like, "Sure, I'll rock with it." Jules, top signing for you. You like a player's fit?
So I like where Steve went there. Obviously, the problems that Kansas City had last year, Hollywood Brown gets them a more reliable guy to fill the Tyreek Hill role at whatever, 50, 60, 70% than all these other guys they've been trying with. So I'm going to stick to the wide receiver position. Everybody's going to go to Kirk Cousins, who I do think, you know, he is coming. That maybe is the most overhyped, because he is 35 and coming back from an Achilles. Like, we'll see if he can make them the odds-on favorite in the division. But let's play the game and say that Kirk Cousins does work out for Atlanta. He's the upgrade that they need. I like the immediate wide receiver additions that they made. Obviously, people are going to talk about, you bring in Kirk Cousins to play with Drake London, to play with Kyle Pitts. They have some good pieces there. But then you immediately go and help Kirk Cousins by bringing in Darnell Mooney from the Bears, who's going to slot in and be a productive wide receiver for them. You immediately trade Desmond Ridder and get Rondale Moore right away. Like, Ridder was useless. To be able to swap him to Arizona for Rondale Moore brings you a speed guy to put right away with Kirk Cousins. And, the numbers are down in Arizona. I would expect them to go up in Atlanta with Kirk Cousins. So I think getting Mooney and Moore to go right away with Cousins and play behind Pitts and London is going to be pretty impactful.
I just got to say real quick, like, the Pitts, like, we've been hearing this for years. Well, I would say years, but since he's come in after his rookie year, this is going to be the year for Pitts. This is going to be the year for Pitts.
Oh, my God.
This actually might be the year for Pitts. I know, like, we've said it 100 times, but, like, this finally kind of feels like, yes, like, this is the spot.
One of the guys who had him in season-long fantasy. Every fantasy manager of Kyle Pitts just wanted to...
Over it. Over it.
Run me over with your car every weekend. The Falcons now have a complete offense, Steve. It certainly sounds like it, listening to Jules there and Kirk. So that's 4 years, $180 million deal, $100 million guaranteed, is now the distributor of the football that this squad has sorely lacked.
Yeah. And, there is some And I have to say, like, there has to be some legit concern with how he performs. Like, on paper, Kirk Cousins in the NFC South feels like it's going to be a good spot, right? Obviously, with Kirk Cousins coming in here, playing for the Falcons, they're kind of revamping the offense, getting away from Arthur Smith, thank God. So they're the favorites to win the South now. The rest of the division hasn't done anything like explosive that we've seen, right? Like the Bucs are kind of bringing back the same team already. You're getting Baker Mayfield, you're getting Mike Evans back, Levante David. They'll bring in Jordan Whitehead for a second go around with the team here. The Panthers have done a really nice job of like restructuring that offensive line and actually giving Bryce Young a couple of seconds to throw at least, because like that was the biggest thing. You had like Bryce Young was just never able to get the ball out to his receivers because he was constantly under duress. So they brought in some guys, Damian Lewis, Robert Hunt, to help shore up that offensive line, so that's going to help the Panthers. But as of right now, the move that would put a team over the top in a division that's very winnable is the Falcons bringing in the Kirk Cousins. So they should be favored at this point. I'm just a little shy about firing away already, even though it's a reasonable number at -125, because I need to see Kirk Cousins on the field and how he performs and how he looks before I start firing away. Because again, on paper, looks nice. The roster looks nice, but is he going to be ready, and is he going to look like the old Kirk Cousins when he gets on that field?
Favorites to win the NFC South currently at -125. Jules, then would you take him over 4,100.5 passing yards?
That's a lot of passing yards. Now, I like the weapons. I like that he's indoors in Atlanta. I like that a lot of other games are going to be indoors or in decent weather. It's not like he's going to the AFC East or the NFC East or something. If he plays 17 games and his weapons stay healthy, I like the over. But unless you're really confident in an over, what have we generally been doing with these season-long totals in years past? We play under because there's just more ways to win. This number is set for him in those 17 games. He could play the 17 games and creep under. I assume if he plays in all of them, he's going to go over. But injuries are a big part of the NFL. You got an aging quarterback coming off an Achilles. Again, this isn't one of the bets that jumps out to me. But if you made me play it, generally I'm going to lean under on those. Just like I said, there's just more paths to winning that bet.
And he wasn't the only quarterback finding a new home. Russell Wilson now is in Steelers country. He's in Pittsburgh. He's the only quarterback on the roster under contract right now. So this team really has to start thinking about what they're going to do this season and really for the future. But for right now, Steve, there were so many people split on this. Some folks are like, he's washed. He's going to be working at Permanente Brothers by week 6. And then others are like, no. There's some others who are like, no, there are tons of positives to take out of this too. Which side of that argument are you on?
I mean, they bring in Russell Wilson and they still have the worst odds to win the division. They're at +950 coming into this one. What really gets to me is that I feel like over the past few years, we have constantly heard nothing but negative things about Russell Wilson. He's lost the team. He's got a bad attitude. He dresses away from the team. Like, that's not something that, like, you want to hear for a team that's pretty young overall, too, right? Like, there's not a lot of vets on this Steelers team, so you want this guy to kind of be a leader. When then you look at the rest of the division, like, Ravens bring in Derrick Henry. Like, how much does he have left in the tank? Doesn't have to be that top guy in that Ravens, run offense, because Lamar Jackson can kind of handle that. The Bengals, they keep T. Higgins. They bring in Zach Moss to replace, Joe Mixon. They brought in a couple of tight ends, which is really like a lost position for that offense over the past year. Wilson, for me, doesn't really move the needle because I feel like the Steelers have a lot more that they need to do on offense for that to be a needle mover. Because, obviously Russell Wilson's numbers weren't terrible last year, but like they also were inflated, you could say, because the Broncos were constantly playing from behind. They're constantly the ketchup kings. He was the king, and not Heinz ketchup, but ketchup kings. But he was like the king of garbage time with the Broncos last year. So, for him to come into this team and they still have the worst odds to win that division, I think kind of says something right there. So I don't think this is a needle moving spot here. Yeah, for them. I want to see what they kind of do in the draft going forward.
Hey, Jules, before we go to break, I know the Chargers also made some moves. You were tweeting about it the other day. You're not too high on the Chargers moving Justin Herbert's top 2 targets.
I mean, I get it. Harbaugh's coming in. You're going to shake things up, revamp the program. Moving on from Austin Eckler is fine. I don't get the rest of it. Like if one thing was working for you, it was probably Herbert finding Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and you essentially give the two away for free. Now you're gonna I assume draft a pass catcher with that top pick to go with Quentin Johnson, who is early on a little bit of a bust. Maybe we'll see what he can do. I just think there's a lot of other needs that you could have addressed before just completely gutting the pass catchers for your franchise quarterback. So we'll see if it pans out. I believe in Harbaugh's ability to rebuild a program long term. But this is a pretty bold start to just take your franchise quarterback and strip him of two weapons that nobody was saying, like, these guys can't play or anything. They still can.
I mean, imagine how Easton Stick feels, too, who's sticking with the Chargers. Final block of our show is next. We'll help you make some conference tournament semifinal picks. Can Purdue dodge another disaster?
Good point.
One more friendly reminder on this fine Saturday morning, folks. You'll want to join us on Monday night, 6 o'clock Eastern Time to 9 o'clock Eastern Time for the Sweat Bracket Breakdown, a fun little special we're bringing you. Again, March 18th, the night after Selection Sunday, 3 hours breaking down all of the games, the men's bracket, the women's bracket, tons of guests in that show. You're going to hear Julian Edlow rambling on nonstop because we have 3 hours to fill. And now we have 10 minutes to fill, so Jules is going to ramble on and help us out with some of these semifinal matchups we see on this tournament Saturday. Jules, let's start here with the semifinals in the SEC. So, quarterfinals yesterday, just packed with a ton of unexpected results in Nashville. And right now, it will mark the first time since the league expanded to 14 teams that none of the top 3 seeds will play in the event semifinals. So a big thanks to Mississippi State just smashing Tennessee. So you have Mississippi State against Auburn, Texas A&M against Florida here. Which bets do you like today in the SEC?
Yeah, I'm looking to the favorites here, and we'll start with the earlier game. Auburn dismantled South Carolina just from the jump yesterday, and this has been a common theme for them this season. They're the second best first half team in the nation in terms of scoring margin. They come out of the gates and build margin early. So I played Auburn -4 on the first half line. The number for the game grew from 7.5 to 8, so that first half may have grown to 4.5 by now. But I laid 4 with the Tigers in the first half. Mississippi State coming off a very impressive win as well against Tennessee, but I think they're riding a little high off of that, and the field is just wide open now for Auburn to take this. So I think that Auburn comes out, flexes a little bit here in the SEC, and builds a pretty big lead by halftime, and likely still goes ahead and covers that full game number, because when they want to against lesser competition, in particular, they really come out and get after it early.
All right, anything in that other game?
Yeah, I lean to Florida. That one I haven't bet yet. I'm probably going to lay 3 with Florida. Again, impressive win for A&M over Kentucky. Kentucky, a team a lot of people like, myself included, and they come out in their first game and do not look very good against an Aggies team that was really going through it for a while, but seems to have turned it around. I just like the balance of Florida on both sides of the ball. They have more scoring threats. We saw them take apart Alabama last night, who Alabama's a team I didn't like in this tournament, and I don't like in the big tournament because they don't play any defense. But I lean to laying 3 with the Gators here. I think they're the better team. Both teams coming in all things even. I think Florida should advance.
All right, Big Ten tournament champion's going to be crowned tomorrow. So semifinals today, and unlike Tennessee, Purdue was able to avoid some disaster there. Purdue, Wisconsin. Then second Big Ten game of the day here, Joel's going to be Illinois and Nebraska. What catches your eye in the DK Sportsbook here for the Big Ten semifinals?
Yeah, more favorites for me here.
Okay.
I like Purdue. They escaped Michigan State. It was never a game they were really in threat of losing, but Michigan State did cover the game. Zach Edey obviously presents big problems for anybody they face. Purdue won both games against Wisconsin this year, was able to pull away in that game in Madison. Wisconsin's playing well. They have a couple of good wins. It was a really good spot for them against Maryland. They advanced pretty easily against Northwestern. They're playing well right now. They're a high ceiling team that was, a top 10 team that came undone in February. They're bouncing back now a little bit in March, but Purdue just doesn't seem to be that team that opponents continue their momentum against. So I'll lay it with Purdue. And then Illinois is just really good. People would be talking about them more if Purdue wasn't the clear-cut best team in the conference, and as good as they are. Illinois gets through any spot. They were down about 10 to Ohio State last night. Easily could have come undone, but they battled back and won that game. So I think that Illinois, again, Nebraska had a really good season. They blew out Indiana in their game last night. but they haven't been that good away from home, and Illinois has just been kind of spot proof. They just kind of keep rolling even when you think it's not going to be a good spot for them. So I would go with the Illini here, laying the 4.5.
All top 4 seeds in the A10 are already out. So when we talk semifinal today, which we touched on this tournament a little bit earlier in the show, number 5 VCU, number 9 St. Joseph's here, and then the 6th seed Duquesne taking on St. Bonaventure, who Duquesne has beaten twice already this season. So what else can you add to what you said earlier in the show about the semifinals in the A10?
Yeah, so I have bet one of these. I bet VCU on the money line, minus 142. St. Joe's is a good team. They took down Richmond. They're playing pretty well. I think VCU's playing better. I was pretty impressed with what I saw them do against UMass. I like their balance on both sides of the ball. I like their ability to shoot the ball. I like their ability to play defense. So I went with VCU on the money line there. In the other game, tougher call. I said to you earlier privately, maybe the Bonnies.
Yeah.
I think I like Duquesne, and this is the reason I'm not betting the game, because now I'm picking Duquesne. You mentioned they beat them twice this year. Revenge spot, blah, blah, blah. Looking at the numbers, I do kind of like the matchup a little bit for the Dukes, and that's probably why they won those 2 earlier matchups here. So give me Duquesne to advance in that one, and what's essentially a pick'em game, but that is not one I'll be betting, whereas VCU I do have some money on.
Who do you like in the AAC semifinals today, Jules?
I like UCF a lot. I played them on the money line last night. I think laying 3 with them is fine. UAB is pretty good, but USF just keeps it rolling. They keep winning these games. There's been spots where you want to go against them, but the Bulls have been really good. So USF, I think, still has plenty of reason to play. Who knows if they're firmly in the field or not. I think they have plenty of reason to still win. So I think it's just a short number on a South Florida team that just keeps proving that the market is off on them.
Yeah, and then Ivy League. You cannot sleep on the Ivy League here, Julian. What can you tell us about the semifinals today before a champion is crowned tomorrow?
Well, I can sleep on the Ivy League because I don't think I'm going to bet any of the games, but I'll tell you what I like. Princeton to advance is obviously a huge favorite. I'm not going to mess with the number there, but if you want to bet someone to win it, they should be in that final game. So still getting even money on them with this 11 a.m. tip creeping up on us. Princeton to cut down the nets and win that conference tournament, I think, is a fine bet. In the other one, I'm looking to Yale. I would lay a couple points with Yale in that one if I were to bet it. Not a ton of analysis. I just think they're the better team in these smaller conferences. Less of a spot bet. You just kind of go to the better team and hope that they're able to get it done. And I think that Yale will against Cornell. Yeah.
Is there a team today that you think, which team today could make the biggest statement in the semifinals? These conferences that have semifinal games today.
The biggest statement in the semifinals, I would go to Mississippi State because they just took down Tennessee. If they could then turn around, and I don't think they will, I think Auburn's going to handle them pretty good. But if they could then turn around and beat Auburn, well, now they're in the final. Now they're looking at getting into the tournament. I think that would be the biggest statement of the semifinals that a team could make. The biggest statement overall would obviously be NC State taking down UNC and stealing that bid and winning 5 games in 5 days.
And Jules, here, before we end the show, let's just recap some of those top bets that you had earlier in the program. Anything you need to remind the people at home and some of your favorite bets of all the ones you'll be making?
Yeah, well, I don't need to do anything with UConn or Grand Canyon because I bet them last week, gave them out on the show, gave them out on Twitter to win their conferences. So hopefully you guys are on those. But if you're not, those are 2 teams I like a lot today. I would go Grand Canyon for the game. I would go UConn first half. I did bet VCU and USF like we talked about in this segment. I think those are 2 pretty good plays. And I like Auburn first half a lot. Laid the 4 with Auburn in the first half. I think they come out and swarm Mississippi State. They are the second best first half team in terms of point margin in the country. We saw it out of them yesterday. I think we see it out of the Tigers again today.
Okay, Jules, good stuff, man. Thanks for battling. Today was your flu game, and we will see you bright and early back here on a Sunday morning edition of The Sweat tomorrow. I know. I can't wait either, because we'll be talking lots and lots of golf tomorrow for the final round of the Players. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us. Don't forget, Bracket Breakdown. That's Monday night, 6 o'clock. But we'll see you tomorrow first.